This is the agent screen. You'll use this screen to create new agents and to modify the settings of existing ones. To create a new one, all you'll have to provide is the name of your agent and a brief description. Everything else has fairly intelligent defaults. But if you want to change those defaults, you can change the language that your agent communicates in, its default time zone. You can also specify an action recognition threshold. Thresholds are a little bit of a complex subject, but for the most part, whenever a user requests something from your agent, Articulate is going to make a guess at how it should proceed. Whenever it makes that guess, it's going to assign a confidence value. If that confidence is above this number, it will proceed. If that confidence is below this number, it will fall back to this default fallback action, which is customizable. Also from this screen, you can set global parameters for your agent. Think of parameters as values that will be used in lots of different places. So in this case, I've set a webhook URL that I can access throughout my agent using handlebars, and I've set it to my webhook URL. Lastly, you can change the settings of your agent on this page. There are a lot of options here, and it's best to review our documentation to find out what they all mean, but let's go through them very quickly. You can set a global webhook. If you set the webhook here, then any action will use this webhook. It's so that you don't have to configure each action individually. You can also change how Articulate responds. By response, I mean the JSON object that we return whenever you're conversing with Articulate via the API. By default, we just return a document ID and the text response that Articulate has generated, but you can convert this to return a lot more information. Third, you can specify how Articulate handles some training options. You can tell it to generate extra training examples everywhere that it can, and you can configure whether it uses multiple action recognition in TensorFlow pipeline. Alternatively, if you turn multiple action recognition off, you can generate separate models for each category. There are pluses and minuses of this, again discussed in our documentation, but the default is multiple action recognition using TensorFlow. You can also specify a lot of the internal options for Rasa. Specifically, you can customize the pipelines. We use a different pipeline for the category classifier, the intent classifier, and entity classifier. And you can also change the URL. By default, we access Rasa that's part of our Docker Compose, so it's inside of the Docker network. But if you wanted to host Rasa externally, you could access that URL here. You can also change a few settings in Duckling. Again, if you wanted to host Duckling outside of Docker, you could do so and change the URL here. You can also specify the dimensions that Duckling should expose as system entities. That's the Agent Create screen. Again, to create an agent, all you have to do is give it a name and a description.